Migas.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and start this button.
Okay, I need to take my glasses off.
Are you blind?
Well, I can't see up close
Yeah,
with
I
it.
can't see up close. That's why I don't have no glasses on. And all the other episodes, I'm wearing glasses, and then something happened from that point to this point. COVID cured my closeness seeing, but I still can't see far away.
Well, the phone's actually closer to me than it has been in the past because
Oh,
I'm sitting at the desk.
right.
So, it's since it's this close up, it's blurry if I have my glasses on. It's always been like that. I mess my eyes up by wearing my glasses reading.
Uh, okay. I just messed them up for just wearing glasses in general. But here we go. Let's go ahead and give it a shot. Welcome to Migas. And that's when you get 2 eggs, some tortillas, and you mix them all up, and voila, you get either a lunch, breakfast, or dinner, or snack, depending on where you're at. My co-host here is my brother, Roland.
Roll.
Roland, roly poly. It's all the same. That's it. And now we're drawing back some old names right there.
We got Robbie. We're gonna start calling you Robbie.
Whoa, now we really went back in the past there. So we got Robbie and Rolly and Roll and anyway, so let's get this thing started. Right off the bat, you got Kate Bush, and that song was always something that I remember was on Night Flight. That's where I saw it all the time. And other than that, I never knew it to be a mainstream song. It just kind of was there, always knew about it. And then it took on a life of its own. But your kids actually latched onto it before the phenomenon of Strange Kids kicked it off. I mean, Stranger Things kicked it off. So how did that happen?
Well, actually, it's funny. It wasn't until Stranger Things that they actually started listening to Running Up That Hill. Before that, my daughter Hannah, I just getting them into music, and she was looking into some genres, and she was listening to Wuthering Heights and Babushka. And so before the season 4 came up, you know, I remember after this came up, I was going through some of the different songs, and like I looking on videos at YouTube, and I put up Babushka, and my daughter Evelyn's just like singing along, and I'm like, how do you know this song? But it's funny because the way Evelyn is, she listens to Spotify almost like we listen to the radio. She doesn't always know who the artist is. She doesn't look down, she just listens. So she's singing Babushka, and I'm like, do you know who this is? And she's like, well, who? And I'm like, it's Kate Bush, the one who's, that Running Up That Hill. She's like, really? Because I mean, you think about it, those 3 songs are all almost, it's like different. Her singing style, everything. And, so of course, kind of like the way we were growing up, we started watching interviews and stuff like that just to get a feel for her. And, it's funny because just like, one of the big things that I've had to explain to her are the gatekeepers, the people are like who get mad that some people are just finding out about them now. But that's why I'm saying it's funny, because my kids, for past 2-3 years have been listening to Kate Bush, just not realizing, putting that name with it. They're just, I mean, she didn't even realize that Babushka and Wuthering Heights were sung by the same person. So, we're watching it. Then, if you look up on YouTube, Wuthering Heights, for the past couple of years, they have a very Wuthering Heights Day or something like that, where a ton of people get together dressed up like in her red clothes from Wuthering Heights, and they redo her dancing. Because again, looking at interviews with Kate Bush, everything that she did was pretty much produced and choreographed. Everything was a performance art. And that's really why I guess she hasn't been really doing anything now. She's like, once she couldn't really do the dancing, it kind of, the music kind of, it was cohesive for her.
Right.
It seems like. So it's just funny. Like I said, the things that, you know, like I said, there's gatekeepers out there who get mad that, well, you don't know who Kate Bush is, and um, uh, I always forget how to pronounce his name. The director of Thor Ragnarok,
Oh,
Taika.
Taika Waititi.
There you go.
There it is.
He even admitted that he's one of
Yeah,
those crotchety old guys who he wanted to use a song for Love and Thunder, but then since Stranger Things did it, he was like, "Oh, I can't do it."
yeah,
And
and it's interesting how that happens, because then it opens up a whole new thing, and then when you got something like, that's in the biggest spotlight, everybody's been anticipating this, and then it just takes that one song, and it ends up hitting a whole different generation. I'm glad that Kate Bush has this, because other than this happening, maybe it would have happened with Thor: Love and Thunder, but the fact that it happened with this show, and I mean, it gave her this big injection of payback. Because I remember this song would always pop up, and unless you were already following her, like you were saying, she was very avant-garde type of performance art. I would put her in the same category as like Bjork, and there's some other artists that like Grace Jones and stuff like that, that some people are not familiar, only certain selected songs that they're familiar with, but other than that, they don't even know the discography and all this kind of stuff of what they have. But I think it's an awesome opportunity for her. On the flip side, there's the whole I don't want to dwell too much about this, Stranger Things being the topic of this, but I'll just real
right,
briefly say uh the fact that Eddie Munson is became this big iconic thing. There's the debate, and I would love to bring it up. There's actually like about 3 different individuals I'd love to bring this up to, and that's Mike Daniel. We know Mike, and we know his love for that music, and he could have easily been that type of character. Gilbert Salinas, and maybe David Lopez, and then there's some other cats that I probably would have brought that up. But for some reason, I don't think Master of Puppets would have been the song that he would have been playing. That's all I'm saying. That was more something that the masses could actually chew on, but I think it would have been something a little bit more hard edge. To me, they ended up making him more of a I don't know. The way they set him up was like he was this, kind of crazy guy, but then he ends up playing such of a mainstream song. I don't think he would have played that mainstream song. I think he would have, yes, I'm going to play, some other band from Europe, or black metal from Norway or some crap like that. But I don't know. But that
but
became a big iconic thing, and it put metal. And you know what? No, none of these people would have loved this metalhead kid. They would have all. We've been in that position, so we know the reality of how they would have, the way they ostracized him. Okay, that was more in line. But then all of a sudden, became this folk hero guy. I don't know. But that's just my little 2 pieces of that, of being actually in that seat, or whatever you want to call it. I don't know if you want to
so
add
I mean,
something to that.
my feeling of Metallica. I I don't hate them. I just don't like them. They weren't my thing. I remember you guys talked about Metallica a little bit. Mike was more of a Megadeth.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, he was more of that. I remember him like
Yeah,
liking Peter Jackson.
Chromags, Anthrax. He was always pushing the envelope. That's why I'm saying, if you were to talk to a Mike Daniel, and then you ask him what music would this guy would have played, he probably would have played something more around Anthrax or Megadeth or something of that nature. Instead of it
So
being Master of Puppets or
maybe we should have a Stranger Friends episode and have your old buddies on here. And
yeah, yeah. Where are they now, and how does the public view them now?
so real quick, and this is something that we can make Migas on later, but a lot of this, and it's funny because my wife and I were talking to the kids about this, because a big thing about Eddie Munson is it's loosely based on I forgot the guy's name, but it was a big thing during the Satanic Panic.
Oh yeah,
They
yeah. They were
they
trying to
call.
base it off the West Memphis Damien Eccles.
Yeah, and they recently did an interview with him recently, but it's funny because you know Jess and I were telling the kids about you remember the 2020, the talking about Do and D. I remember that. I remember I mean,
Yeah, it was a satanic panic. That's what they a lot of people like to call it. And it was the whole against they would have protests. The churches would hang out at the Memorial
mhm.
Coliseum. It was Ozzy. They're going to protest. It's Kiss. They're going to protest. And I mean, they were bringing back the whole thing. It's Knights in Satan's service or Kids in Satan's service. I mean, you enter whatever you want into those letters, and that they had some kind of, you know. Every kind of concert that they would have some kind of protest that would go on across America. And then Madonna became the brunt of that
So
too later on too.
so before we change subjects, I like Stranger Things. Mainly because I watch it with the kids, and I think that's what you know. Um, we watch Stranger Things, but again, it still feels like the Goldbergs to me, where it's not really like it was in the '80s. It's what
Hmm.
the nostalgia you want to see. I recently watched with the older kids, of course, Heather's, which was more late '80s, but um, that's what I pictured you in high school, like that kind of situation, not situation, but the way people were in that. It was more like that than Stranger Things. I mean, I remember you in high school in the '80s and your friends and stuff like that,
Yeah, we look like the
and
type that would
the
blow up
the
a school. I thank you for that. No, I'm just.
you're welcome. Well, no, I mean it's the social diversity. Like, you were friends with all of them. I think you, Richard, and I were like that. And it kind of goes throughout our lives. In the Navy, I when me and my friends hung out, they would have never hung out together by themselves, but they were all different. But because I was friends with all of them, they would all hang
Yeah,
out.
there's always that one person that bridges the different groups together, so to speak. Yeah, I've always felt that way. I would have friends that would never in a million years, if they were by themselves, talk to this group, and then vice versa. They wouldn't. If it wasn't for me, we're all kind of hanging out. It was by chance there would be all of us would congregate in some shape or form in that hallway. I think there's always been some individuals who are like that, and it's unfortunate that there are some of these outliers that never end up, crossing streams. No, I'm just right. They just never crisscross in the group sections and stuff like that. Um, along that vein, so to speak, and music wise, your kids have stumbled across something that we grew up, even our groups, regardless of where they felt Kiss was, at some point or another, we were all kind of in a group where Kiss was a big portion of our lives. We either like were collecting the tapes and we shared them and we would listen to the double platinum, or very specifically there was one particular, well, even Alive too, but all the majority of that material came from one particular album that was Destroyer. It's one of the most iconic covers next to Love Gun, and it has you can listen to it from start to finish, and it's almost, it hits as far as Kiss were. It even had their biggest hit song, Beth, and all that. But a next generation for you has actually latched onto that. My son several years ago, got into his Kiss phase and stuff like that, and kind of learned about that. But your kids have stumbled across Kiss in general, and then that was one of the albums, along with some other material that. Well, how did that end up happening? I mean, I already know that
Um,
we did Kiss shows and other podcasts and stuff like that, but for them, how did they come across that?
well, you know, um, I listen to a lot of things around them. I try not to push, like, I try not to push, my music onto them, what I like. But a while back for Christmas, we got a bigger record player, and I bought some vinyls, and one of them was a Destroyer album, and it was there. And out of all the records we have the Sing Street album, we had, which the kids love. They love the movie and they love the soundtrack. Um, I think actually Sing Street kind of. I mean, they've listened to my stuff, the music I listen to, and it surprises me when I hear their Spotify playlists and they're listening to, um, the music I was listening to. I'm like, I didn't know you guys liked it. I thought, you just putting up with it like we did sometimes with mom and dad. But
Yeah.
all of a sudden I'm coming home from work, or I'm hearing Kiss, and I walk out and James is has the Destroyer record on. He's just listening to it. And Evelyn started listening to it, and they're playing Kiss playlists on Spotify.
Are you worried
The
about the certain playlists and what songs are on these things, or are they not listening? Because I'll tell you this:
No, they're
for a long time, I would listen to the songs. I wouldn't really pay attention to the lyrics until I got older, and I'm like, oh my goodness, I've been listening to this song and never really paid attention to the lyrics.
so surprisingly enough, they've stuck to, and I know some of their makeup music still has those undertones, but they've kind of stuck to the makeup years. Um, I've put on a few other songs. My daughter and I Evelyn, we ended up watching the old VH1, behind the makeup, and I was like, here, check this out, because with the little kids, I put on Scooby Doo meets Kiss. Like that was a fairly recent one,
Yeah.
and it's funny. It's funny seeing the kids take on Kiss, where my youngest son Edward does not like Paul. I'm sorry, Starman does not like him. He's like, oh, he's like he talks junk about him every time he comes up. Um, and so it's funny that on Kiss Meet Scooby Doo, one of the songs on there's "I Was Made for Loving You," which, I mean,
Yeah.
you listen to the lyrics and you're like, this is on a cartoon. And when you have Edward, Susanna, and Juliet, some of my youngest ones, singing this song when it comes on, it's just I've actually turned the volume off and they continue singing it, and I'm just like,
It's like Menudo
well,
all over again. No, I'm just.
I know, right? But no, it's great. They've been. I'm over here. The kids are at a little youth church thing, and they're requesting songs, and they're over here requesting Detroit Rock City, and
Oh.
you know it actually is funny. When at one of the youth events, they were having this little part of, oh, anything you want to uh,
Play
request. And
except Kiss.
James, well,
Except
no,
Ki-
it's
no.
so a little side. So James requested pop music, and they didn't know what he was talking about. And he's like, pop music, And again, I think Sing Street, uh, again, they listened to other stuff, but a couple years ago when you told me about it, and I put it on for them, like they fell in love with it, and the music especially. And so another album that James listens to is Head on the Door, which is another album I have. And again, it's just awesome seeing them enjoy, you know. And
Yeah,
I'm
that's
trying not to push. I'm like, hey, we got Jimi Hendrix and Skid Row and all these other albums you can listen to, but
yeah, it's funny. It's funny what they end up finding and what I don't know. Sometimes, I mean, well, you know me. I mean, you could just probably throw a dart on a whole musical board and you're going to have all these different bands. And I don't know, were any of my kids ever going to get into Dave Matthews, Nine Inch Nails, Bela Fleck, Basha, Enya, whatever. I mean, you know what I mean? I would listen to truly anything that there was. And so it surprises me what they end up finding out on their own. And so I think it's very interesting how that kind of loops around because I mean, there are certain music that we picked up from, our parents and stuff like that. And I think, there's things that actually lasted and they became part of something that we would regularly listen to. Even together, we would listen to like oldies in general. I think that's what had happened. And then what ended up carrying that forward was, we had a friend that we would always play video games with, and the oldie station would be on. and it was like oldie after oldie. It would be a Beatles song. It would be, Mandy or whatever. What is that? No, not Mandy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then we would have different songs like, whatever it was, any kind of song that would pop up, and that became, But what I liked about then was, I think playlists were generated different by they would let the DJs kind of run the songs that they want to play. Nowadays, now I'm going to just make a commentary about the way music is nowadays. If you listen to an oldie station, more than likely you're going to hear the Eagles, Billy Joel, the same John Cougar, Mellencamp, whatever name guy, and it's Jack and Diane or Pink Houses.
Sucking on a chili dog.
Yeah, and it's like, really, and it's the same like five bands that are like over circulated. I don't remember hearing Bohemian Rhapsody as much as I do nowadays. You can listen to the radio and you're going to hear it at least 2 or 3 times a day. I remember it was a pleasure and like, oh my gosh, kind of like the way it was in A Little Bohemian Rhapsody. And then he puts it in there because they didn't play that on the radio. And if they did, it was a rare occasion, and you'd catch it at late night when they were like trying to play a long song so the guy can go to the bathroom or whatever the case may be. But it was a special kind of thing to capture and hear that song actually on the radio. Wayne's World actually reintroduced that song into the thing. And then as we, with Queen movie and all this kind of stuff, it's like, to me, it's just, this is going to sound like blasphemy, but I actually changed the station. I'm just tired of listening to the song. Same thing with Under Pressure. They would never
Oh
play
yeah.
that song as frequently. And then all of a sudden it's like a mainstream song that you will always hear. You don't hear lots of David Bowie songs. I don't know how you feel about David Bowie, but you're not going to hear Space Oddity. You're not going to hear Heroes. You're not going to hear Changes. You're not going to hear Fashion, Fame. You're not going to hear these songs that were always on the radio when we were growing up. And now it's like, oh, you're going to hear this Queen and David Bowie song, or you're going to hear Let's Dance or something of that nature.
So speaking of that, it's kind of I was actually thinking about this, and sometimes when you do hear a David Bowie song on a movie or something like that, it's a cover.
Mhm.
And real quick, speaking of like, do you ever listen to the radio and then like out of nowhere, for some reason, like on all the playlists, um, a song just kind of jumps back in? Like, surprisingly enough, back when I was in Florida and even here, all of a sudden I started hearing George Benson, like
Oh, wow.
on the radio, like, and I thought, oh, it's just a one-off, but like it would keep coming up, and I like George Benson, so I'm like, it's odd how sometimes
A song gets
you know,
recirculated for some particular reason. And I wonder about that. And I've always wondered about that business of the radio programmer, the guy that is in charge of programming those songs, because I've done a test where I'll go across the radio dial and we have like 2 rock stations, or like somewhat 3 rock stations. And then we have like 2 oldie. One's a rock oldie station, but and then the other one's like just a plain old oldie station of what it's classified. And what I notice is that if they're playing a Motley Crue song, and then I go to the other one, they're playing Home Sweet Home, but these guys are playing Wild Side or Smoking in the Boys Room. And then you can do that with sometimes the Eagles or Dire Straits, or you'll hear some kind of song and then you go to the rock station and then they're playing Sultans of Swing. And I'm like, are they getting like a list, like an email of, hey, these are the preferred songs that we recommend you guys as programmers play at specific times?
or even the artists.
Right. And we're back to, is it just a big payola and they're paying for those spots? And that's why I hear Billy Joel all the time and John Cougar and all these guys over and over and over again. Because every time I hear Jack and Diane, and like, bleep, I change the station. I've already heard that song too many times and I just can't hear it anymore.
It's like that meme that I shared recently about how in the 80s you can put on any radio station and in 15 minutes you'll have heard a Phil Collins song. Doesn't
Yeah.
matter which one it is.
How many
And
do you hear
even
now?
every once in a while, yeah, but
Not as frequently, but it's only 1 or 2. It's not like the plethora of of the amount of songs that he used to play. You would hear Billy, did you lose that number? Phil Studio or whatever, the Studio, and then you would hear, Against All Odds, and then you would hear all his soundtrack songs. Basically, in the 80s and early like 90s, you would hear all the songs. Like In Excess. When is the last time you heard an In Excess song? I haven't heard one. And I remember they would at least would play Never Tear Us Apart. I don't even hear that anymore. It's like they're off the air list or something like that. They don't play them.
The longer the better. Then again, In Excess
wasn't your cup of tea.
A big fan.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
But that's the beauty of it,
You did.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, and I let my kids know this, and this is why the music that I listen to, I tell them, I'm like, well, that's what your uncles and I listened to, and it was us playing Name That Tune. We would you turn the radio the volume off, and we'd have to guess, or we used to do that with TV theme songs, which people like flip out. So I'm like, yeah, we used to own albums. We used to own whole tapes that we bought of
theme songs,
the theme songs,
collection of theme songs.
And now it's like, and it was,
that
before they were showing, before we had the access to them, it was Speed Racer that I remember you playing. And when I was little, I was like, what's a ghost speed race, like Ghost Racer? Like, I didn't understand it was Speed Racer because they were saying Ghost Speed Racer. I thought it was Ghost.
Right. It's interesting how that I would try, the saddest part that I have is I try to find some of those theme songs. I can find them on YouTube, but you can't find them on Spotify, or some of these compilations that were very iconic, because we were huge on compilations. There was several series of compilation albums that now there are some great people out there that actually make them on their own personal Spotify playlists, and you can actually find some of those. But of course, some of those songs are missing or are not available in any shape or form. Or the worst case scenarios, like what they used to do of those 50s and stuff, like Yakety Yak, and it's totally redone and it's modernized with electronic drums, and you're like, this is not the version I grew up hearing of some of these older songs. And I can't listen to those. I can't listen to those remade songs. And of course, it's the original artist trying to cash in on something they can actually make money on. But you know what? That's not the song I grew up with. I need to hear the original. Take out the papers in the trash.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
The moment I see remastered on some of them, I'm like, so, okay, there's a song from Stevie B, The Postman, and so Jess and I would listen to it all the time, and we'd sing it, and all of a sudden I pulled it up and it sounded different. The phrasing was different. I'm like, wait a second, what is going on? He pulled off the old one, and the only one you can listen to is remastered. And the way it's phrased, there's even a part where he like says his own name, which I'm like, that wasn't there before. It's like,
yeah,
you're not that relevant enough to but you know what, it's like the trilogy, it's like the Star Wars trilogy, where luckily, because of fan, my kids know it, Yub Nub, the Ewok song, because if not for fans being upset and YouTube and stuff like that, it's not in the trilogy. They do that other.
Right, but isn't on Spotify there's like a anniversary edition, and I think they might have the song, but you can't see it in the movie.
Right.
Maybe?
No, yeah, it's on Spotify.
Yeah, but you can't find it in the movie in any shape or form, like the way we grew up with it and stuff like that. We're getting to that point where those Migas are almost done, but let's jump into something real quick. But on this case, Marvel had tons of things. They say that they have stuff announced all the way to Phase 7, which will appear in 2025. Which of the things that you saw are you most excited about, and which one of these you really don't care? So that's just one-on-one. What are you really looking forward to from what you've seen announced from Marvel?
Well, I've seen the pictures as X-Men 97, which is the continuation of the X-Men cartoon that even though there's a pride, even though there's a Pride of the X-Men that we can talk about later, but the animated series that we've been waiting so long to see, and it was just, it was great. And now that they're going to continue on that, and I think they kind of went off the Kevin Smith,
He-Man.
Kevin Smith, yeah. And the one I'm not so, She-Hulk.
Yeah.
I want to be.
No, I know.
But and I saw Mark Ruffalo's in it and Hulk and everything, but
I'm actually
it's
looking
nothing
forward
against.
to, I'm actually looking forward more to the Munsters than She-Hulk. But anyway, yeah. It's kind of hard to watch
Really, we're
some.
gonna go there. We're gonna go there.
You know what? If we do, okay, you know what? We are going to go there. We'll go in a real quick thing. My defense for what he did is, and then I'm talking about Rob Zombie, is I think he took a lot of the tongue-in-cheek, fun, playfulness, and silliness. That is the key word. The silliness of what the Munsters was, and I think he tried to do that. Tried to do that. That's the key word. Tried. And I mean, it's hard because you're doing a prequel. You're doing the when they got together.
So okay, but
You're
even
still
then,
missing some key characters.
well, no, because Eddie.
Yeah, sure. And then the Marilyn, and then of course the big dinosaur or dragon, whatever you want to call it.
So I guess the only thing is the casting of Lily and
Yeah,
Grandpa.
well, I mean, yeah, I'm not really a big fan of the Herman either.
Oh, and Grandpa looks like he should be in Dracula in the video. I mean, what's with the?
Yeah.
I mean, if you're gonna, I mean, because look at Adam's Family. Raul Jul, like that was like.
Yeah, those are modeled specifically after the drawings of,
Yeah, but I'm saying the I thought that was, very well done, because now I don't mind if it's, this is a prequel though. So the Adams Family kind of just played with what you knew,
right,
and kind of just continued on with it.
right.
Because I mean, Adams Family, there really wasn't, a plot. It was just kooky.
Yeah, this kooky family. Yeah.
Yeah, because it was a comic. So I think they were able to pull off that more than, but then again, like really, the Munsters didn't really have a plot until the movies.
Maybe he's trying to establish that kind of relationship of the Addams Family, but with the Munster, because I mean, yeah, they liked each other, loved each other, whatever, but it was like, really, how did these two get together? Do you know what I mean? You never really got it. I mean, it was like who and oh Herman, and they were just there. Yeah, they were just there.
And they had a werewolf as a kid, or I mean, I don't know,
Yeah.
like
Maybe there's gonna be a
like,
werewolf guy walking in this.
is it? Well, I mean, like even in the Brady Bunch tried to answer
Yeah,
questions that people had, but that would see, but the Brady Bunch made fun of itself more than
right.
like
Yeah,
Beverly
this is
Hillbillies.
right.
Was
That's
good.
another one. That's another one. See, we can go easily into the remakes and stuff, and then, we're never really gonna know. Trailers are never really. This trailer wasn't even done well. It just really seemed raw. I seen a black and white where they took all the color out, and it actually looked better. Do you know what I think? It's overload. I think it's too much colors. It's too much of all that. Munsters were always black and white, and it's just very super psychedelic. And you know what? Maybe the trailer is just going to throw everybody off, and when we see it, it's just going to be something different or not.
But you know what? In the long run, I'd rather it be campy than taking it serious, because
Yeah, they could have went that way, and then it could have really been a super duper disaster. I think, but see, that's the key point. I think they're going to try to do the silliness. The campiness is already kind of implied there. But I mean, I don't know how long. I mean, it's going to be probably a quick hour and a half movie, and
I'm not expecting it to be like a cinematic masterpiece. And actually this goes back to some of the movies we've been watching, me and my family, that you kind of miss those fun movies where you don't have, like Lost City with Sandra Bullock and
Loved it.
yes.
Yeah,
So it's funny
my dad
because
was a weatherman or whatever, or anchorman or whatever he's. And then he
So-
just fucking.
yeah, why are you so good looking? He's like, my dad. Yeah, my dad was a weatherman.
Yeah, loved
And
it.
so it's funny because I looked at before we watched it, I saw the synopsis and I went, is that Romancing the Stone? Because Jess and I just had watched that. And then I read up and they're like, yep, it's a loose remake of Romancing the Stone. I thought it was a fun movie. It didn't take itself serious. And they're like, oh yeah, the Island of D. Oh, well, the D means.
There you go.
Like,
Yeah.
but it's, yeah.
And with that,
Oh,
that means our Migas are done. So one thing you can look forward to is another episode of Migas. So come back with us. We'll have another topic to start off with. Who knows where we're going to end up all the way through. But you know what? One thing for certain, it's either going to be me, my brothers, and we're here to make some Migas with you. We'll see you next time.